Let's begin. So our focus today is the tool we're using right now, and it is called Google Meet. It used to be called Google Hangouts, and that was it was more of a consumer product used with the Google Chat and Google Hangouts chat and all that kind of stuff. So about 5 years ago, Google started to take all their tools and create a suite of tools, and they now call that G Suite, and they are corporate level. So that means it is all approved by the ministry, and it is all official tools that we're allowed to use. So the ministry has a number of different tools approved, but there is Microsoft Office, for example, Office 365 with a lot of Microsoft tools, and G Suite or Google with all the Google tools. So that means this meets all the security parameters that the government asks so that we can keep our data safe and our students safe, more importantly. So that's why we don't use Google or Zoom, or we certainly don't want Zoom to be used, or different medium, because this is something that we know it's a corporate level of security, and we can protect the data that's on here. There are different Google Hangouts out there, or Google Meets out there. There's a consumer version. It's still not the same as the one that we use here as a corporate user. So we just like people to know that that is always important. And it's also a reason why sometimes there's a lot of good tools out there and we don't just jump on them, because we have to make sure that they're safe and that they fit into our technology ecosystem. So let's get into views. So I know someone's texting, Rita's texting that she can't understand me, so she's probably breaking up. Stephen, are you hearing me okay? So it could be a problem on their end.
I can hear you, Doug. It might be a problem on her end with her Wi-Fi connection or something.
So we'll talk about some things that you can do for that right off the hop. So to begin, right now I'm looking at a huge picture of Stephen, because he's the last one to be talking, and then a bunch of you on the side. I can't see everybody. And this is something getting used to in a meeting, and I'm sure many of you are working at home and trying to work through Google Meets or Zooms or other products like that. And you just have to get used to how the interface works. So Google Meet is nice because it's very simple. It's easy to use, and it's very good at sound and video. Whereas that's some of our problems, where it doesn't have all the bells and whistles that some of the other ones have out there, but it does what it's supposed to do very well, and that's why we like it. We need a tool that we can use from K to 12 and operate that way. Okay, so to begin, let me demonstrate, and I'll show my screen here. So I'm going to go to present mode. In the bottom right, now we get to have. All right, sorry about that. All right, so we just have to get that home experience in there so you can all enjoy that. All right, so the first tool that we like for everyone is if you move your mouse and click on your screen anywhere, the white band at the bottom pops up. And I'm going to click on present now so that you can see that. Okay, and I'm going to present my entire screen. Now, anyone in the class, anyone here could present their screen. We don't want you to do that right now, but anyone could. So if I asked for, Lori, could you demonstrate this or something like that, she would be able to, show me what's going on there. All right, so now you're seeing what I'm seeing. So when I click on the screen, this white band pops up at the bottom. And these give me some very valuable tools. So the first one is the mic, the mute. So before you go, wow, this Sadler guy is really boring, I don't know how he became a principal, you'd probably want to mute. That way, you don't hurt my feelings too bad. So that's important. And Stephen demonstrated what a good teacher does at the beginning of the session. He gave ground rules, tried to explain some of the things and how we're going to operate. And I'm not going to touch on those, but Lori will after as our teacher expert. The next thing you have here is the the hang up. That's a picture of a phone receiver that probably none of our students have ever seen before, because they only see cell phones or cordless phones that look nothing like that. So that's always interesting that that's the symbol we use to hang up. And then the next one is the camera. So if I click on the camera, it turns off my picture, and now you're hearing me, and you'll probably just see my icon with sound waves around it that show that I'm speaking, and that I'm still here, but my camera was off. So now I've turned my camera back on. So what Meet does is, in the big screen, whoever is talking is in the big screen. And then depending on which setup you have, the other people show up on the right sidebar. And the people who've spoken the most recent, those are the ones who show up there. So it could change a little bit as we go. So I'm going to show you a couple of good tools. Number one is closed captioning. So there's no better way than to really get an understanding sometimes of what people are saying, or if you are having some difficulty with the connection, that you have closed captioning on. So now that the white band has gone away, you can see that I'm speaking, there's my icon, and you can see all of the words in real time. Google is very good at this. They're actually an industry leader. We can't capture this at this point. We're soon we'll be able to translate it into another language real time, which will be a fabulous learning tool. But right now, it's just regular closed captioning. So it's a nice feature, and I recommend that people turn that on so you can see how it works. Now, another good thing about it I've found is sometimes during staff meetings, I may not be presenting the most exciting stuff, and I know Google makes the odd mistake every once in a while, and sometimes that's more entertaining than what I'm actually saying. So that'll be a nice benefit of the closed captioning also. So now you can see right next to the closed captioning button, it says you are presenting. So I'm showing you my screen, and probably to the right or to the right, you'll see my actual image. And now I'm going to click on the three dots, and that stands for more in Google, meaning more options. So when I click on more options, the number one option here, there's obviously the recording button there that we don't want to touch, but under that is change layout. And this is where I get to choose how I'm going to look at the information coming in. Most people choose tiled. And now that I've switched to tiled, let's see here, change layout, and now I'm tiled. Okay, when you go to tiled, because I'm presenting, it's showing a different view, but if you choose tiled, you'll get to see, I think is it 12 different options there? I think Lori will confirm that for me. Different people on the screen at once. Now, this is where we get into one add-on. There is one add-on available that you can add if you use Google Chrome, the browser. Now, you can use other ones, but Google Chrome is always the best one. And I know Stephen mentioned that to everybody who joined us, that it would be best to use that just because it's the industry leader, and it's also good with Google stuff. So if you have Google Chrome, you can get this tool. We're at the top here, right next to where we see all the people. So if I click on the people, there's everybody in there. And I see all those wonderful red mics, meaning they're all off, because it really makes it difficult to present when you have feedback and stuff coming from the different atmospheres out there. And you also see all the different people that are there. So I could actually click on someone like Steven, and I can pin him to my screen. He's fully engaged, and he's definitely enjoying the session. So we'll take him off the hotspot. There we go. So that's the people bar. Now, if I just click into my regular page again, I have this icon that probably most of you don't have. And this is an extension that you can install, a little piece of software that is approved. It's the only piece of software that's approved that you can install to include into Google Chrome, and we do mention it to our students. And what that does is it gives us the Brady Bunch effect. So now I can get everybody in the session, and I've been into sessions with upwards of 200 people, and I'll have every single little video screen in here. So now I can keep an eye on the whole class and just see our people watching and looking and that kind of thing. So Lori, I think you're going to talk about cameras and stuff like that later, right? Okay, so I'll hold off on what we encourage and stuff to be aware of and that sort of thing with your students using cameras, if they use a camera, that kind of thing. So this is a nice feature. You can turn it on, you can turn it off, and it's a great way to see everybody at once. So I will post in the chat box, which is that little box right there that shows me what's going on here, and I can I'll paste that link in there. So if I wouldn't do it now, but at the end of the session, you can click on that link and it will take you to a page that looks like this, and then you can add it to Chrome, and then you're able to add the Brady Bunch feature. And again, this is something that we've vetted. There are other extensions out there, but unless we vet them and make sure they follow all of our security rules, we don't advise them. So for Google Meet, this is the only one that we really want people to have. And again, it's not necessary because that other view is also pretty good. All right, so another thing that can be done from the More menu, you can go full screen, you can control your closed captioning. It's this one right here called Settings. So if you click on Settings, and let's say you are having a bit of a problem, I think Rita got in, she left and she came back and everything seems to be better. But sometimes, even with awesome fiber internet that some people have, it just doesn't, you're getting static, or it's breaking up, or you're missing things, and it's making things difficult. So you can click on Settings, and what you can do is go to your video, and you can change what camera you're using. So if you have more than one camera, you can switch that up. Or you can change the resolution of what you are receiving, or what you are sending. So you can lower it. So mine are on the lowest settings, so I'm not pushing too much, because you don't need a super good quality image when someone's just talking. Sometimes if you're focused on a screen a lot, you might need something better, but this generally does it. Or on the receive resolution, you could even switch it to audio only, or one video at a time. So whoever's speaking, that's the only one there. So that significantly reduces the amount of bandwidth that you need, and that makes things run better. Sometimes you might have an absolutely fabulous internet connection, but you're VPNing to work, which is a really heavy pull on your bandwidth. Somebody's streaming a video and someone else is trying to have a Google Meet, which is streamed video. So that's a huge pull on your bandwidth at your home. So it's not always because the internet isn't good. It's just because there's a lot of heavy use. All right. Google Meet is can be used on any browser, but again, Google Chrome is the best. And another one is, or you can download the app. So just put something else different up there for a second. You can also download the app, which is the Google Meet app, and you'll always know Google product because it's always produced by Google. So it's something to always be aware of, that you need to be aware that it may say Google Meet, or it may say Google this or Google that, but who is the producer or the author of the app? So it's a good idea to always double check that. But if you go to the App Store and get the Google Meet app, then you'll have access. To it. So, for example, on an iPhone, it'll show, okay, this is the Meet. This is my camera active. It always asks first, and generally you'll be able to turn off your mic and your camera before you go into a session, which is usually a good idea. And then once you're in, then you get to participate, and you can use your phone just as easy as your computer. And the nice part about that is you get a bit of an arm workout holding that out in front of you at the same time, so you can get a little physical activity while we're doing a Google Meet. I know students are doing some meets in some crazy ways. They're in their bed, or there are other areas and stuff like that. And again, Lori's going to talk about that as we go on. All right, so I've talked about just a little bit of a review, the settings, talked about closed captioning, talked about how we can change the grid view so we can look at something that I'm looking at right here. And inside of this, I can pin an image. So if I want Lori to be my focus, I can click on Lori, and now she gets to be highlighted there. because I'm worried Stephen might have nodded off a bit there. So there we go. I'll move it back to the other ones. And let's see, we have screen sharing, which I've demonstrated. So once you start screen sharing, anything that I do on my computer with my 1 or 2 tabs that I have open here, that you get to see. So I can go through and demonstrate individual things. And usually teachers will have all their lesson planned already on slides. And then they usually record these meetings so that they can share them later. Now, I'm saying usually because every teacher can approach this in a different way. Some may only do recorded meets. Some may do a meet once a week. Some may do them, in different frequencies. Everyone's going to do something different that they feel is going to meet the needs of their students in a different way. So there is no, it has to be this way or it has to be that way. It's just another tool that they're able to use. So I think I'm going to hold up for a second there and let Lori come in so you can get to hear a little bit of a different voice and she can talk about some from her perspective.
All right, thanks, Doug. Okay, so I'm going to give you an idea of the types of things that you might see as far as rules and ideas from your teachers. As Doug mentioned, teachers are going to use meets in different ways. It's going to depend on the age of their students, the idea behind their lesson, and the type of things they want to do. So I guess one of the things we just wanted to touch on is when you're inside of a meet, just like when you're inside a classroom, and as Stephen did for us here tonight, that you typically like to set the ground rules. So I just wanted to talk about that for a moment. So I'm going to take over the screen here. All right, so hopefully everybody can see my screen all right. What I'm just showing you is just a couple of examples of what Google Meet rules might look like. And I just wanted to review few of these things with you because as you know, this type of learning is new to all of us. It is new to the students, and we really want to, make sure that everybody's kind of in the right mindset, because even though we're discussing this through Google Meet, it still is the same idea as a classroom. So the teacher might establish the different rules. And so they definitely would encourage your child to find a quiet spot, somewhere where they can speak. And in a classroom setting, it's going to be the same, where the teacher is likely going to mute all the students during the lesson, just like if you were standing at the front of the class, the students would listen. And when they have questions, they might type in the chat, they might raise their hand, depending how the teacher decides to set that up. Obviously, students are encouraged to listen to others. The one thing you'll notice, if you have everybody's microphones on, only one person can actually have access to speaking and be easily understood. So it's important that, just like in the classroom, students understand that and they're listening while their peers are talking. Then a few of the other things is it's really important that, they're dressed for the meet. Certainly students are in their home settings, but we would encourage them to be sitting at a desk or a table, to be, dressed like they would be dressed for school, and really to be ready to learn. So I think that one of the things that, is good is that they're treating this just like they would if they were in a class environment, and they're really trying to make the most of it. I'm just going to get out of this here for a sec. And as Doug already mentioned, and I just want to make sure to reiterate this because this is really important for students, is that they know that they can mute their microphone, they can access their video, they can turn on the captions, and many of them also present their screen, because if we're trying to teach a student a lesson and we can have them present their screen and share their information, it's the same idea as if they're in class. And I think the one really nice thing about Meet is that it does build community, and for the students that are accessing it, they're really enjoying seeing their peers and being able to see their teachers. All right. I think I'm done. Am I off sharing now? Yeah, so that's just a little bit of an outline, and time is getting on. So if we had a few minutes for questions, Stephen, or if there's anything else you would like to.
Yeah, thanks very much, Laurie. That was very insightful, and great job too, Doug. So hopefully by now parents have had an opportunity to get a better understanding of basics of how to operate Google Meet and what some of the rules are. And this, we believe, will better assist you as a parent when your students are in those learning sessions and going through a Google Meet with their teacher to better understand what some of the requirements are for the student, and perhaps even support them if they do run into any kind of difficulties as their class is going along. So it is just about 7:30, but we will open it up for any questions right now. Hopefully people have, thanks to Doug's demonstration, got a better sense as to how to use that chat feature. So if you do have a question, just indicate that you have a question in the chat feature, and then we'll know who you are, and we can turn your mic on and then ask the question that way. No need
So
to
while we're waiting for any questions to develop, this is another example of, you don't really need that long of an actual meet to cover a lot of material and to engage a student. And sometimes if you go too long, it breeds boredom and you know, slacking off and not really paying attention either. So it's nice to do things in small groups like this, like 30 minutes, we present for a while, see if there's any questions. It's nice if sometimes you want to present your material, sometimes you want to stop and handle things right away. So there's lots of different strategies that we can use. And the last thing I'll focus on is, if you do run into trouble, sometimes it's good to make sure, if your computer's a little older or you got a lot open, sometimes if you do find problems, it's good to have a nice fresh reboot, start the computer or close it down, come back into the meeting, and sometimes that just cleans it, flushes out the cache, and then you'll have a better attempt. And also minimizing things. You can use those settings to reduce the amount of video that you're looking at, because the key thing is who is talking and what are they displaying.
Doug, if I can just jump in for 1 minute. I see a question from Steve just talking about the length of the time in a meet, and you are correct in that we really try to, like, if a teacher is teaching a lesson, you really want to keep it a mini lesson and keep the students engaged. So I think the teachers would obviously have the same philosophy, whether they're standing at the front of a classroom or in a meet, and we really need to keep our lessons focused, on track. And the idea is to do that in short amounts of time, like Doug had just mentioned. And Rita, you're asking about how do you know if the child attended the class? If a student is in a meet, the teacher can see the list of names that they've attended, and often teachers might have a little activity or something the students might do so that they're aware that they have attended. But when students log in with their tools to go account, their student accounts, all of their names are listed inside of the meet and under the people tab, and the teacher is able to see that. And Doug, I think they're also...
Oh, yeah, I'll get to that question about the extension. It's also important that a teacher will try, as you do in the classroom, to recognize everybody at least once during the meeting to make sure. This is so difficult with the students having to operate this way, so they'll always try to connect in some way with every student, just so that you can get some sort of socialization with this method. Okay, so the extension gives you that little box in the right next to, in the top right, you'll see there's the chat button, then there's the people button, and that allows you to add people or allows you to see who's in, and then there's a little grid button that pops in there afterwards. So how do you get that? It only works if you're using Google Chrome, and it's an extension, a little piece of software that extends your browser. So it only works on on a computer. So if you go to the link that I'm going to provide here, and I will show you what it looks like again. So there's the link, and I'm going to go present now, and I'm going to present my whole screen. You don't have to always present the whole screen. You could present part of it, but that's booting up there. So now once I go to that link, it takes you to this page here, the Chrome Web Store, and Google or Home Extensions, and then it's called Google Meet Grid View. If you just go to Google and type in Google Meet Grid View, then it'll get you this. You click on this button, Add to Chrome, and add Meet View. I'm surprised it's doing that because I already have it on there. But I add it again, and now you can click on that button to get access to it. So let me go back to the Google, and then there it is with all of you, and that's if I turn it off. And because I'm presenting, it forces this mode here. So that is Google Meet grid view. All right.
So we did have a couple other questions in there, Doug and Lori, if you can look in the chat box there.
Okay, is attendance required or mandatory? All right, that's a good question. Basically, yes, it is. When a teacher is trying, now this is where the difficulty comes in. We have to be as lenient as possible. So we are trying to engage students in any way possible. So grades 9 to 12, we've asked that if you're going to ask for synchronous learning or you're going to ask for a session where you expect everyone to be there, do it in the pardon me? We ask that you put it in a session or in your class period. So if you're in first period, then that's when we'd like you to do that session. And then that way it's easier to schedule. And if the period 2 teacher is going to do it, you're not going to overlap and that sort of thing. We hope that they're recorded. They don't have to, but we like them to record it. So if anyone misses it, they'll still be able to get access to it. Now elementary, that's a different ball game because again, sometimes the student's going to need the parent to help out, and so as long as they give lots of notice and they try their best to you know, be there, and then they try to share the information afterwards. So is it mandatory? No, but they do their best to try to see why you're not attending.
And if I can just respond to Stephanie was asking if your children are having difficulty with their audio or video, that's a discussion for another day. But most teachers are also recording the Google Meet, so even if you're not able to get them into it at that time, then they will be able to receive a recording that they can access through their Google Drive. So they would still be able to view the lesson and hopefully get as much information as possible.
So there was another question there, Lori, from Steve Irwin in regards to what grades you anticipate kids using Google Meet at the elementary level.
At this point, it is up to the teacher's discretion to use Google Meets and how they would like to produce their lessons and forward them to the students. There are classes as young as junior kindergarten who are accessing Google Meet right through to grade 12, but it's not consistent. It's teachers making decisions for the best learning experience for their particular students.
Some students have chosen to use screen, or teachers have chosen to use Screencastify, which basically they go through a lesson, they're talking, you can see a little picture of them and they have a highlighter, and they will just do a lesson that way, and then they will save it and then they'll post it in their Google Classroom. And Google Classroom, coincidentally, is the next session on Monday at 7 o'clock. So Emily, and who is here, and Lori will be running that session. That should be very very good, because that is our #1 tool to reach all of our elementary. But it is optional, and we're seeing it being used all over, and it really is helpful for instruction. In the chat there, we have some examples of where it's being used in grade 3 and grade 6, and it's all the way from K to 12. We see it being used.
So there's a question there from somebody named Julius, which I'm a little uncertain about the phrasing on there. Julius, if you want to turn on your microphone and ask the question to help our facilitators better understand what it is that you'd like to know.
My question is about if school close, how are the kid going to get their teacher online? Because after when school close, they are going to collect all the Chromebook out.
Mm. So when you mean at the end of the year,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So there is a plan that they will be collecting all the Chromebooks at the end of the year. So they're able to put them back into the carts and clean them and physically clean them and software clean them. And there won't be communication with their teacher over the summer anyway. But if they need them back in September because we're unable to come back, then they'll have to be reissued to students who need them. So all students have access to online classrooms. Right now, there hasn't been decisions made. However, we're looking at scenarios both ways. So we will make sure students will have access to their teachers with technology.
So I saw a question there, Doug. I can help answer the next one. The question was, this is a common question that we get from a lot of people in regards to students retrieving their items from schools. So we are just waiting for further clarification from the Ministry of Education with some safe protocols on that. Once we have that from the Ministry of Education, we'll be discussing that as a senior administrative team and coming up with a plan in cooperation with the local health unit on how students will be able to safely retrieve those items from their schools. And we are anticipating being able to do that before the end of the school year. Okay, well, it's about 7:40. We went a little bit over. It doesn't look like there are any more questions coming in. I just want to thank all of the people who came out here tonight. I especially want to thank Doug and Lori, our virtual presenters here, our facilitators. If there was a way we would applaud for them. You guys both did a tremendous job. It was very informative, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here to do this for our parents. Just before we go, one final note, as Doug mentioned, our next session will be on Monday night, and we will be sending out a voice message, and we will be posting some information on our social media outlets on Facebook and Twitter with some information on how you can go about registering for that. So again, thank you very much. Seeing a lot of thank yous coming in from our parents. Thank you for being here, and hopefully we'll see you all again on Monday night.